it's like this kind of no-brainer when you get the chance to work on one of your childhood favorite games.
The funny thing is they tell you don't work on a franchise you love.
What's nice is that, and what I love about this industry is that it is kind of for everybody. People don't hire you to fire you, right?
You want to make the games that people love.
We're super professional.
No, you're all good.
Doing this for the first time.
Hi guys, today we have a little bit of an unusual episode for you. So we were invited by a new company, Postcard Games, to do a little bit of story about it. And we talked with a couple of our old friends, discussed what the company is working on, talked a little bit about hiring and the differences between larger and smaller organizations, and talked a little bit about the magic of Irvine and why are there so many video game development companies in that area.
Greetings and welcome to the 80 Level Roundtable podcast. In each episode, host Kirill Tokarev invites video game industry leaders to talk about the world of game development. No topic is off limits as long as it relates to video game development. New episodes are in the works, so remember to follow us or subscribe and share with someone you know will also enjoy the podcast.
So, before we jump in, can you do like a little intro about yourself?
Yeah,
tell us about what you do, where we are right now, and kind of give like a little introduction.
Yeah. My name is Ray Almaden. I am the game director, founder, and CEO of Postcard Game Studio. We're a brand new AAA studio here in Irvine, California. We're in our brand new office, which we call the Post Office. Postcard Game Studio is a post office. And yeah, we're here having just started at the beginning of February. And we have a great team kind of assembled, coming together to make what we think is going to be the next great open world first-person franchise.
Tell me about your career, because you had this amazing journey. You worked at Crytek, then you worked at Naughty Dog at like a couple of very big titles. Then you worked at Blizzard, and now you're working here. So how did you kind of navigate this amazing?
Yeah,
it's like spanning continents and states and.
Yeah, I was like really fortunate to have like this kind of opportunity to work for all these studios, and really grateful for all the opportunities that came along. But yeah, I started my career like I don't know, 2007-ish, like in Germany, in Frankfurt, with a company called Back 13. They're mostly known now for the search games, like Dark Souls kind of games. So we worked on like this action RPG, and it was like really my
I remember.
Yeah, Benedict was the name of the project back then, and I do remember like this was like the moment where I really got the kickstart into the environment art career, like first time really working with really experienced artists and learning a lot in there. And from there I basically then moved to Crytek. They also were located in Frankfurt, so it was it's kind of the next kind of logical.
How was this
step.
jump from Frankfurt to Santa Monica? How did you?
Yeah, so basically there was like another kind of step in between. There was Rocksteady in London. So I basically went from Frankfurt, from Crytek to Rocksteady, and worked for a couple of years on Batman Arkham Knight. So it was like basically
it's like all of your games are those amazing games.
Thanks, yeah.
How did you get into like environment? How did you decide like, oh, that's what I want to do for a living? I really liked it. And how did you even get into this discipline?
So before the game industry, I actually worked in like garment printing. Okay. I made like shirts and pants and things like that. And I worked at like a shop for about 7 years, and I did not like that very much. You do the things. Sometimes you do things to learn what you don't want to do. And while I was doing that, I was like, okay, I love art. I was working at a brewery at the time as well, on the side, doing merchandise and labels, and I was teaching myself art through that. And I was like, okay, so I want to do art, and I want to be able to, I like making things to give to people. So it's like, okay, well, where can I find that outlet? And, I had a passion for games. I love playing them. That's where when I would come home after my shifts, I would come and sit down, and that's where I would find my escape, And what I found more and more was that as I explored these different worlds and these different stories that others had created, that I found it to be like, yeah, I think I could, I want to know more about it. So did some research. I saved up for like 5 years, and then I ended up going to school at
What school did you go to?
it was called FIA, UCF, the University of Central Florida.
Okay.
So I was doing a master's program there, and then from there I, didn't really know how to use a computer. And one of my best friends, who's over at Ubisoft right now, he actually taught me kind of how to use a computer. I was super frustrated, how does a folder structure work? And so it was like doing that kind of intense boot camp style and open learning area that, learning how to create things on a computer as far as the making things for games. It was as I explored that more, I realized that what I liked doing was creating spaces that people could exist in and explore. And it was those kind of things that I found that people found most meditative, in the sense of that you get lost in it. And so then I was like, no, I like this. So then I focused on environment art. And the more scenes I built and the more games that I worked on, I was like, yeah, this is where I find myself being most drawn into.
So my first question is what is so special about Irvine? Because we've been working for a while, and whenever I see a new studio coming up, it's in Southern California. It's usually in Irvine or somewhere around that area. What is so special about this? Is this because of the Blizzard Entertainment being here, or maybe there are some other reasons? What makes it such a good spot to start a new company?
I'd say it's exactly that. It's Blizzard being here has such a big draw, such an immense talent. And that really led other companies to come here, like Obsidian, Ready at Dawn, Amazon Game Studios. But for me, it's coming back home. I grew up in Orange County, and the draw of Irvine is, hey, I went to University of California, Irvine, and it's the usual things about California and Orange County. Just the weather is great. Yeah, the beaches.
Except for today. Today is cloudy.
Yeah, the one day.
So we decided to come.
And then, funny enough, it's Disneyland.
Yeah.
Actually, I grew up 20 minutes down the street from Disneyland. Just grew up going to Disneyland over summers and throughout the year. And Disneyland is just a really great influence on me as a creative and a designer. And I think for a lot of people from game development who end up making a trip out there, it really feels like, hey, they do what we do in such a unique, kind of amazing way. Like when you take Environment Artists to Disneyland, it's like, hey, they're building what we do in real life. Like when you see the Cars Land mountain range or the Galaxy's Edge Star Wars Land mountain range, it's like, wow, they're building just natural what looks like game art geo in real life. And then just the way Disneyland has really evolved over the years with attention to detail, which is very similar to what you see with next gen and current gen games. Everything is getting built out in real life. You walk around a hangar in Star Wars Land, and you just see all the little props that have been built out just to make it feel authentic. And it's like, hey, that's exactly what we do with environment art, with props and all the assets. And again, just to walk around and experience it in real life, that is, that's just incredible.
I think the funniest story I heard about environment artists is actually from Blizzard. When they were building Overwatch, they had all those. It had the certain kind of it wasn't real actually. It was kind of inspired by what the world could be, and they did a bunch. They took a bunch of environment artists who were from Belgium and all the other places to kind of take it to the studio backlot to show how to build a Hollywood map when they were inspired, and then they kind of took them there and they had them to drive them back through the real Hollywood Boulevard, and then they came back and they thought, oh no, we did it all wrong. We had this sparkling vision of Hollywood, and Hollywood Boulevard is completely different.
To see in real life. Yeah.
And they were and then Jeff Kaplan was like, no, don't change everything. We want that,
the bright positive.
Bright positive stuff.
And I think that's the trick with Disneyland is they really try to get for that positive, bright kind of feel. But again, it's attention to detail, like any environment art.
Do you feel like having Blizzard here in Irvine, does it influence all the other companies around in terms of what they're building, what they're choosing to build, like style and all those things?
I think it. I mean, for the ex Blizzard startup studios.
Yeah.
I mean, what's funny is you probably saw them when you walked in the building.
Yeah.
Just right there is
Yeah,
Frost
yeah,
Giant,
yeah.
and they're a really big ex Blizzard startup doing RTS stuff. And right next door to us, the door down is, I don't know if you saw Notorious game series. They're ex Blizzard as well. So yeah, there's a big development company, and as we kind of shift from people working for kind of the big publishers and then going independent for everything that does. I mean, that's what we're doing. Like, that's always going to be the influence. It's like they're explosive. You have Dreamhaven, Timmy and Mike Morheim, and what they're doing. But yeah, we always.
I mean, it's like incredible. Like Blizzard.
Yes.
There's a lot of studios spawning out of them, like all over.
Yeah, just so many kind of names like Second Lunch, Bonfire.
Yeah.
Lightforge, Tencent with I forgot the name. Tencent has a studio here, and yeah, I mean it's so much Blizzard influence, and I think that's kind of what we think is unique about us is that we're not ex Blizzard, we are ex Halo, ex Naughty Dog, ex Guerrilla and Horizon developers, but really trying to kind of mix in with that talent here as we hire people because. Hey, guess what? Half my team was already here in Irvine when we started, again, because it's such a big development tool, hub.
And as I was working there, I got the opportunity to talk to Naughty Dog. And back then, like Uncharted was like my all-time favorite franchise. So it was absolutely amazing when the interview went somewhere and they flew me in and I actually went for like a long weekend. From London to Santa Monica and kind of had a conversation with with all the art lead and art directors at Naughty Dog. So that was great, and it took another year for the visa to be sorted out. But then I kind of started working on Uncharted 4, and that was like an awesome time. Yeah, it was great.
And so
Thanks. Yeah.
you worked at Uncharted. You had that amazing career there. So why move to Blizzard? Like, what kind of pushed you to take this next step?
I think for me it was like so I'm a huge Uncharted fan. So I love the visuals and I'm very driven with building like this kind of ruins, temples, like historic kind of elements. And as we moved to The Last of Us Part 2, which is a fantastic game, and I'm very proud of being part of this production. I think it was still awesome for an artist to work on, like the beauty in decay kind of setup.
It's also like a gloriously beautiful game.
Exactly. So it's like awesome to work on a game like this on this scale. But I was kind of starting missing a little bit these kind of more fantasy elements. And after 5 years at Naughty Dog, I also kind of felt a little bit I felt a little bit I would want to kind of explore new things. And I had at the time a few friends that worked at the Diablo team, and they're reaching out, letting me know that there is an opening. And it was like a perfect timing because you're just finishing off The Last of Us Part 2, and I was kind of open a little bit for a new position. And that was like great because the Diablo franchise is one of the kind of franchises that...
it's like forever, like Mario.
It's basically like I played Diablo 1 when I was a kid.
Yeah,
so
me too.
So it's like this kind of no-brainer when you get the chance to work off one of your childhood favorite games. So I took this opportunity. It was a great step. It was great to meet new people because it was like for a long time at Naughty Dog. So it was a good kind of mix up in things. Also a new pipeline. New tech. It just gives you a new perspective on things when you kind of change your position a little.
So one of the I think interesting points in your career is that you've actually worked in Amsterdam for Guerrilla Games. So I think this is one of those elite kind of studios that everybody wants to work for, and the kind of game that they're making a kind of like super high quality bar in terms of environment and overall. So my question is what was it like working in that environment? Did you feel like a little bit of awe that you were there when Jan van der Beek was walking around, and was he scary? Like, how did it feel like overall?
Yeah. So most definitely, oh, it's a great word to use. Like definitely days of imposter syndrome of like, wow, how did I get here? But no, like every time I talked to JV, he was like super nice, you know, and like everyone on the team ended up being like incredibly close friends, and they're like very supportive and very uplifting in the sense of like they, you know, one thing that I talked to some people at GDC, some new students and people trying to get into it, it's like people don't hire you to fire you, right? Like they want you to be at their company, they want to help you grow. And Guerrilla is one of the like places that I've never felt so welcomed and like loved by my fellow coworkers and everything at any job that I've ever had. So it was definitely an incredibly difficult choice to leave. Like they made it hard to leave, and even though now we're doing our own thing, and I'm really loving this process and what we're doing here, and I'm, you know, excited for our future. But like I will always, like I will always be grateful to Guerrilla.
Did you like kind of live in that area? Like, did you like Amsterdam and Europe in general?
Yeah. So I was there like during the pandemic, so everything was kind of closed. But all my time in Amsterdam, like, we lived in Westerpark, which is on the west side of Amsterdam. And exploring, having the opportunity to even get a different world perspective as you're there, right? Like, so, like Europe, like what I liked about moving to Europe and talking and meeting all these Europeans, right? It was like, you realize that they are people. They're humans. Like, I feel like, at least in America, sometimes there's a glorification of like, oh, they're, you know, Europeans are, you know, completely, like, you know what I mean? Like, right? Like, I'm sure it's on the other side too. Yeah. But you're just like, oh, no, there's people. And it's just like going into work and meeting new friends. And I found everyone to be incredibly kind.
The awesome thing working for Crytek at the time was that there was a lot of people that went and did the jump abroad. Like there was a lot of my coworkers that went to Blizzard or id Software, and they actually did the jump abroad, and it was kind of interesting. And as a young guy back then, I was like kind of inspired by that. So when
why not?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you know, I was like not bound to anything. There was not in a relationship at this time back then, so it was like an easy kind of move to do. And I thought like, hey, I'm young right now. I should just do it as I have the chance. Right?
So I have a couple of questions about your career, because if you look a lot of people who work with you right now, and you've kind of gradually moved from like level designer to being like a CEO of a game company. And I think a while back I had an interview with the CEO of Problem Monsters.
Yeah, Harold.
And we talked with him, and I asked basically the same question: how did you make this journey? Because he also was like an engineer, and then he ended up being Then he ended up. You probably know him, right? Because
we never met, but same kind of circles,
company,
having
right?
worked in Seattle.
But what he answered is that kind of like he was also always supporting the teams. So he was like this team guy. Yeah. Whenever like there's little team, they wanted something, you know, budget or anything, like he was kind of like the leader to go. And do you have like the same answer? Like what kind of helped you move along the way and pushed you ahead?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I got my start as a level designer at Ubisoft and did level design my whole career. And what I loved most about that, like that's really what I'm passionate about and driven to make as a designer, was being in that position. You end up talking to everyone on the team. Like being a level designer, you're creating the experience for players moment to moment. So that requires you to work directly with the environment artist, work with the lighting artist, work with programmers and animators and just everyone on the team, because you're making the experience for players that players are playing. And that really kind of enabled me to be like that go-to jack of all trades. Started just making level design, worked for several different studios, shipping games, and what was a really quick amount of time back then, like shipping games on original Xbox and PS2 and the Far Cry and Splinter Cell franchises. And then really what it was when I got to Guerrilla for the first time around Killzone 2 era. I was picking up Maya and then learning the language and the design kind of rules. And really everywhere I've gone, I've picked up like design techniques on that franchise or that studio I worked with. And so it's always been just being there, learning what really drove kind of that franchise and made it great, and then applying that forward on the next studio and the next studio and the next studio. And I don't think really what it was, and it's great to mention Harold because he comes from QA, a big part of my experience in the last like decade of making games has been about usability, user research, user experience. And having been at 343 Industries on Halo 4, like from the beginning, that was learning how Microsoft did user research and how you play test games, and really how that is a huge like driving factor to quality for the entire team. And then going on to Naughty Dog and seeing how they do that and how Sony kind of does that, all the way to most recently at Guerrilla and Horizon Forbidden West, and having kind of be that is AAA games ensure the quality with their big budget and their big scope through user testing, usability. Sony calls it appeals, where you get people from off the street, they play the game, and you're really seeing, checking the game, checking the quality, seeing what's worked and what doesn't. And so being able to kind of represent the team and present those scores and that data to them means you're really working with everybody. And that's a big component of level and mission design. Again, I mentioned like driving the moment-to-moment gameplay. And then as soon as you start doing accessibility, you really start to realize what's driving like the player experience.
Do you feel like it's important for like managers to kind of rise from above in games? Do you think it's important to understand like what does the level designer do, what does the environment artist do, what does the sound guy do, how do they kind of work together?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, hey, being in the trenches, but also really understanding that there's a process. That, making games is incredibly hard, as everyone knows. But, teams are so big and everyone's working on stuff individually, and so many studios do things differently. I mean, we all have the common goal to make the best game possible, but everyone kind of goes about it kind of different ways, and you hear like, oh, hey, this is really how Ubisoft drives production with multiple teams and just thousands of people on it, versus like making a comparable open world game. Here's how Guerrilla's going to do that same thing with 400 people on site in Amsterdam, but with also like big kind of outsourcing. And like having that experience of, shipping a game, seeing other studios, I think is really paramount and critical to the success of a manager.
So your studio today, it's not very big. How many people you have right now?
We're about 15 now.
So it's a pretty small studio, like for if you take Irvine into the equation. But I think it's the question that I'm asking, it's kind of universal for whatever the amount of people you have. And the question is, what makes a team happy? Like we did a bunch of surveys like on 80 level, and we asked kind of similar questions all the time. Like what do developers want? Like what makes them tick? Like what makes them happy? So what's your answer to this?
I would say making the game you want to play. And that's an old Naughty Dog saying. And it's really like being proud of what you're working on and knowing you're creating something that someone's going to love. Because I know without a doubt, everyone in this industry, artists, designers, programmers, we're in here because we are creative and we want to make the games that people love. Like when I grew up playing games, like I had that moment where for me, and this is a common interview question I ask, is like, what's the game that made you want to be a designer or work in the industry? And mine, it's Ocarina of Time, because playing that game and having that moment, I'm sure it's the moment a lot of people had where you step out and you walk into Hyrule Field and you see everything on the distance and you look around and it's like, this is it, I'm on an adventure, I can go here, I can go there. Like that feeling I had, it just was captivating, and I knew like, hey, I want to do this for a living and I want to create the same experience for other people, and really that's how I want to like entertain and do my job.
Sure. How do you choose what studio do you want to work for? Like, how do you make this? Because, like, when you're, let's take like when you're at a certain level, you kind of can work anywhere. Like, you can work at Ubisoft, you can work in Guerrilla, you can work on like if you put your mind to it, you can work at Blizzard or any other company. So, how do you choose the place where you want to be?
I think part of it is like research, like anything, you gravitate towards in any kind of artistic form, you gravitate towards the things that you like doing and you have passion for. So if you like stylized things, realistic things, whatever, maybe you just like telling, like, you think the story's cool of the game or whatever. So you look at that, and then, you know, you apply, and let's say you go through the interview process. Like, during that process, it's not just you being interviewed, you're interviewing the other people, right? And you're saying, like, do I want to sit next? They're saying, do we want to sit next to you for 8 hours? But you should also be thinking, like, do I want to sit next to you for 8 hours? So I guess in my search, it's like, sometimes, like, even in the back of my head, like, you know, with a grain of salt, take this, but it's like a job is a job, right? And you have to acknowledge that you're going to have to search for one. But as you go on that journey, you'll find that, like, over time, your self-worth will grow. Because, like, I agree, when you're starting, you kind of do have to be like,
Whatever.
yeah, you can't, beggars are not choosers. And it's, down the line, it's like, do I like the project? Do I like the people? Do I want to move to this area? Like, that's another thing. Like, there's a lot of more logistical issues.
So, do you feel like it's the choice is motivated by, like, team's culture? Does compensation has anything to do with it? Because it feels like,
Let's not pretend. Yeah. Sorry.
You know?
Yeah. Let's not pretend like money is not a factor in living, right? Like, yes, you must make sure that you're being adequately compensated. There's nothing wrong with taking a hit to your pay, right? If you have a passion for the project, you have a passion for the team or whatever, or maybe you really like the area, like maybe you really like the idea of living in Montana. You know what I mean? Like, whatever.
Okay.
And I get it. Totally cool. But I think that part of that thought process is also making sure that when you look at your portfolio, you look at the work that you've done, you're like, no, this is what my years of training and skill and whatever have all gone into this moment. Like, I am worth this much money, and I need to be able to eat and live. Yeah.
what about this studio, Postcard Games Studios, here right now? What are you doing here right now? How did you end up here? Like, I know that you worked together with your CEO at Naughty Dog during the Uncharted days. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I worked with Ray at Naughty Dog, and he basically was the level designer on the level on Lost Legacy that I worked on with him, and it was like it was a great experience. Like, we did this awesome level that was showing to Game Informer. Was basically like one of the key arts or selling points for Lost Legacy.
It is a great level. It's just
thanks.
And played it, you should.
And the whole kind of collaboration with Ray was really went really well. It's a very good level of communication. So he did reach out to me like I would say like roughly a year ago, and was asking if I'm interested in joining a new studio that he's about to found as a lead environment artist. And that was like quite interesting on the different perspectives, because first of all, I'm working as a production artist for like a couple of years, for like quite some time now, like 10, 12 years, something like that. And to transition into a lead role, that's something that I was kind of thinking about, I might be interested in. But then it's always like a hard transition in an established team, in an established company to do these kind of moves, because obviously there's
a bunch of people already there.
Yeah, exactly. And so to get this kind of opportunity, I think was great. Plus another, probably even a more interesting or more appealing kind of reason was that being at the beginning at the new studio, being there at the beginning, the new franchise, the new IP, defining the look, being part of the defining
no
team.
rail guards you can basically do.
Yeah, and what was interesting in my career, or my 12-year career, if you will, is that most of the franchises were like sequels. Rocksteady, Batman Arkham Knight was the third game in a series, and at Naughty Dog it was obviously Uncharted 4, and then Last of Us Part 2, and Diablo 4. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's in fact like quite awesome to work on games that are so well known and have so many people that love playing these games. But I think the appeal for any artist, I would say, to create something truly new or being part of that, I think is very appealing. So, and that's why I was very interested in joining Postcard. And also, working again with Ray, and I remember that collaboration was fantastic at the time, and totally trusting his
Vision,
ability to hire the right people for the job. I think it was quite an awesome opportunity. I couldn't say no to.
So, do you feel like there are other things that are important when kind of game developers are making decision to join the studio? Like, do they take a look? Because it's kind of like a bit of a philosophical question. Because we all know that they do look like at the compensation package with like the hybrid models that are right now. You can basically work from everywhere. So, it's about compensation. It's about the game. Maybe there are some other factors that they weigh in.
Yeah, I think number one now, and I get this from everyone we've been talking about, is really it's team culture. It's fit, and we've been really just outspoken about how we want this to be a real positive, but most importantly, a fun studio. A big saying we have, and it's all over our website, is making games is a dream job. And unfortunately, it doesn't feel like that at times, just again, because making games is so hard. But also that comes down to studio kind of management and culture, and each individual contributors like leads, and really how they value kind of them and their well-being. And I think that's really what's most important. And we really value that, and people have been really receptive for that.
When you talk about culture, I think it's like one of the most important things, because you want, especially with video game developers and like artists, designers, they want to be recognized. They want to make sure that their thing kind of ended up there. But you don't always have this freedom, and sometimes you have to cut something out and kind of give feedback that might not be, super positive in a way that it's maybe positive for the project, but not positive for the individual. How do you work with that in your company? How do you figure out how to, tell something that they're not offended, that everybody's kind of still on the same boat, but they understand that this has to go, and
Yeah, I've learned very early on, and this was when I first became a lead and became a manager, is it's really about explaining to someone the why and how, and really where this decision is coming from, but most importantly, like, hey, how can you grow and learn from it? I have a saying that quality is iteration times time. And anytime you kind of have to cut something or you have to change it, you're iterating on it. What you end up with looks nothing like what you started with, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it's a whole process to
Totally.
it. And a lot of that is just making sure people kind of understand that is I have another saying where it's like, oh, it's all about the greater good, like making the best game possible. So, if the tough decisions have to happen and content has to be cut and your work has to be thrown out, at least, hey, management and your leadership team, like, they acknowledge it, and they're grateful for what it did, but ultimately it's like, hey, we're making this call because this is going to make the game better. But take everything you learned, take everything kind of you did in that time, and we're going to take that and grow from it, or really just take that content and iterate on top of it, and that's how you make the best game possible.
So, a question about people as well. So, you're 15 people right now. Whom are you looking for right now? Do you want to hire someone? Because a lot of our readers and listeners and viewers, they're probably in university somewhere, or maybe they're in another company and they're looking for opportunities. And maybe you can kind of elaborate on that and tell us, like, in general, like in the industry, who's kind of like the unicorn right now, except for maybe like the technical animators and the graphical engineers. Those are like, you never find them. But who is like the hot kind of specialty?
I mean, direct positions we're looking for are just straight environment artists. Our highest caliber opening we have is an art director. We have like an incredible concept team, environment team, but we're really looking for someone to unify the vision. And it's most specifically like around all aspects of the game, like characters, UI, animation, VFX, and you'll talk to them. We have a great environment artist.
I know them. I mean, personally,
in the past, and just showing that up. But really, what we're looking for is someone, if it's a student, and we've hired people straight out of school, because we believe our superpower as a studio is going to be mentorship and growing talent. A lot of the leads here I actually hired out of school onto Halo 4 at 343 Industries, and then we all went on to do amazing
We
things.
actually,
And
I actually
coming
played
back
the
to
hell out of Halo 4 with
Okay.
my friends, so I really like this game.
Thank
I
you.
know some people are like, but I love it. Yeah.
So yeah, we're looking for people who want to take advantage of it because we know what this opportunity and what this situation is. It's people highly experienced who really want to come together, make the best game possible, and really leverage all their experience in a real positive work environment. It's all about team fit, team culture, most importantly having fun. Making games is a dream job, but then understand they're going to contribute, like our new junior producer and our junior designer. They know it's hey, this is the task, this is the job, and that's an opportunity that's really not afforded to someone kind of really joining the industry the first time. And then also to the more experienced seniors and leads and directors, it's hey, joining this as a studio fit and a culture, and really defining what this game is going to look like.
When you're talking with people, when you're going over portfolios, what do you want to see there? What are the most important things? Do you want one finished piece? Do you want a bunch of unfinished pieces? Do you want tech illustrations? Do you want more the final renders that are photoshopped and all nice and tidy? How do you decide? What do you want to see there?
Yeah, I think so. As an environment lead, I'm mostly interested in environment art, of course, and it's quite interesting because a lot of the kind of applications you might get are not they try to be really widespread, but I think it's actually better to focus. So if you apply for an environment art role, it's good if you show that you're interested in environments and not picking environments because maybe your characters are not strong enough just yet. So I think that's an important part. And to follow up on what you said, I would also say that finished pieces are quite important. And especially something for me, what I'm looking in usually is, I'm not only looking in just nice props. Of course, you want to see good quality assets and finished assets as well and put into game engines. But what I'm particularly interested in is if an artist is not only just creating props, but also take these props and create a nice, interesting scene. Because at the end, every artist is a storyteller, and it's very important to be able to contribute to the game's story. Because a lot of the environment can be considered as its own character for most of the times, especially coming from my Naughty Dog background, where as an environment artist, you are encouraged to create a lot of kind of story beats into all the environments you're building on. So it's really important actually that in your portfolio, for me at least, to add not only the props, but also arrange them, try to tell a little story. And even if it's just a desk that it doesn't need to be a fully fledged out huge environment, but it could be just a vignette, a desk, a corner, but I should be able to see the story that's or the idea behind it, more than just, hey, I created this 2 or 3 assets because I thought it looked cool. Just go a step further and
or
use
it's
these.
or it's a subway station or all those things they do with Clinton, Crumpler, and all the other guys. They're great. They look very high level, but they're kind of all similar. Very
I mean, even if it's a subway station, I mean, it could be totally fair enough to create one, but then add this story to it. That makes it special and unique.
The good news is, as a new team and a new studio building a new game and franchise, we know exactly what we want to make. This has been a career goal and dream for about 4 years now, and it took kind of shipping a Horizon game and a lot of kind of meetings and pitches, but it's always been the same kind of unified vision. And it's really just been asking the people I loved working with in the past. It's hey, here's the opportunity. It's building a new studio to build this game. And I promise you, it's going to be the most fun you've had in development. And everyone who's joined us so far says, this is a once in a career kind of opportunity. So we're looking for people who want to do that and jump on board. And we've had our luck with that as well.
I have a question. So you have, as you mentioned, you have amazing guys. You have people who work on a bunch of very successful games, especially in the Environment Art department. And my question is, do you feel like these guys, they require more technical skills right now? Because I hear it from recruiters everywhere, basically, that just knowing the basics, knowing like anatomy and everything in ZBrush, it's great. But if you would also know some of the more like technical stuff, if you know Houdini, or if you know how to program a little bit, that can only increase your chances to get in. Because like my technical animators especially, like I think I found one and he was snatched directly from like Nomon, like in a way, like right out of the door. So do you feel like getting technical gets you more possibilities of getting a job?
Absolutely. My feedback is always, to trying to make their break in the industry, is ultimately you have to prove you can do the job we need you to. So however you can kind of gain that experience and kind of prove that like the better, like being well-rounded in tech, like it's very obvious for anyone design, art, programming to kind of pick that up and say like, oh, actually, hey, you've done this or this in this small amount, or you've used this engine, and that makes us really exciting and compelling because we know what the job is, like they don't, and it's really just trying to fill kind of that all those boxes and say like, oh, if we can bring you in, here's why we'd be excited to have you. And it's just always having all those skills is always a plus.
So another question that we get a lot from students as well as is it better to have a little bit of everything on your portfolio, or do you just want to have like one nice finished project that shows that you can finish stuff, or do you want to have like a decal there, something there, a gray box here, or like you want a finished environment? Like what's the best?
That's a great question, and I can really speak to design is just having really quality examples of everything. Like with design you see a lot of students who are either like, hey, I took this one class and it presented me this portfolio piece. And you just see that stamped out from everyone who worked at that school, and it's kind of obvious what happened there. So, there's that, and it's getting out and really building stuff that you wanted to, that is going to prove how you can do the job. And I always tell students, it's like, okay, if you want to work on like a first-person shooter or like a Naughty Dog game or a Halo game, build that content and really kind of show examples of it. And then your question of like what's the size and scale of it, it really depends on your discipline. Again, it's about proving the job you want to do. So for like design, it's like if you want to be a systems designer, hey, I built a gun from scratch in Unreal. If you want to be a level designer, hey, I built an encounter. And if you notice here, I haven't said like, oh, build the entire game by yourself or build everything, because for AAA studios and our studio included, like you wouldn't be tasked with doing that. Big games like us and AAA, like, it's teams. So kind of demonstrating, again, you can do the job. That's all that really matters. And having bits and pieces are nice, but it's really like, hey, if we just are hiring someone to make our weapons, if, hey, you have an example of, hey, I made a gun from scratch in Unreal, or if we're looking for someone to build encounters for us or missions for us. Hey, I built a mission and it's like 20 minutes. You don't have to build like a 2-hour mission or like a, but just something that demonstrates the game.
And it kind of, it also has to be finished, I guess, like that's an important step.
And I'd say another tip is like a lot of students, they just say like, hey, look, here's either a cut video of snippets of it or here's the download link. It's like, no, show your work. Like show us kind of, your process, your design process, your thought process. I mentioned iteration, like show us how you iterated on whatever you made. And that's like an amazing portfolio. You get to really dig in and see how you think and see how you work and really, look at it and say like, oh, okay, they think and they process and they design and they iterate very similar to what we're looking for. And that's a big one.
So we talk about like a lot about the artistic side and all the things, but I hear time and time again that people want to hear more of the like technical skill set. They want to know Houdini, they need to, program a little bit, they need to do all those extra things. Are these things important? And for you as a lead, when you hire, do you look at the kind of optimization that they can do, or like the coding that they can do?
Yeah, so I would say not every artist in the team needs to be an expert in Houdini or an expert in substance designer. I think in general, as a game artist, you need to have a good understanding of the technology, like Unreal Engine or Unity Engine, the 3D software packages. You need to understanding of substance. That's totally the future of texturing. So there needs to be an understanding of the entire pipeline. But you may not need to be like the perfect professional in all of these equally. Like when I look at my team, for example, like I would, like how I would hire is, I would hire like an expert in Houdini, which probably leads a little bit more into tech art at this point. Then it would be like a texture expert that is really knowledgeable in substance designer, for example. But I don't need everybody being on like super specialized in a certain tool. I think there's definitely room to specialize, but there could be also a specialization in sketches, in the artistic forms of environment art creation. Because that's also very valuable if someone is has good skills in illustration.
Just a good artist, you mean?
Exactly, yeah. At the end, it's way harder to train an artist to be a good artist than train a good artist a certain tool.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of hiring, if the quality of the artwork is great, but maybe the understanding of certain tools might not be quite there, that is
It's not
something.
a deal breaker.
It's not the most deal breaker, but again, in games, it's a very technical. Yeah, exactly. You have to have a general understanding of what you're doing. So it's probably harder to hire like a concept artist for an environment art role than a 3D artist or prop artist into an environment role. But still, I think there's not a black and white kind of thing. It depends on what is needed for the team. And maybe I have a couple of very good artists that lean into the tech side. And then it would be good to hire someone additional that is better on the pure artistic, like illustration, like classic, traditional artistic skills to balance that out.
The industry change dramatically, and video game industry is kind of like one of those that every 5 years something drastic changes, and then your workflow is completely different. The quality bar is higher, and all those things. From your perspective, what are like the main trends that are going to change the way that we build games from environment art standpoint and content production standpoint, like maybe photogrammetry, maybe, AI-based neural network, material builders like Adobe does, or maybe something else, maybe like the tools that help you build environments, like, again, using neural networks or something. What are the next big kind of chunks that are going to, make your job easier, or, improve the quality of games, or help you build them faster and stuff like that?
I think like Unreal is doing stuff where they're having more tools being put in engine that can do things like even like geometry deformation, right? Where like things where you no longer have to jump out of the program to then make modifications to go. Like I think that's a huge time saver. I sometimes like laugh and I feel like Houdini is going to replace us all. Like every time I see
procedural stuff.
Yeah, it's just like the way that people can make things is just like, wow, that's crazy.
And it's also incredibly hard to work with. So it's
totally
not like too hard to work with, but it's just to learn it.
Oh yeah, no, there's a huge barrier, but it's just impressive at the things that people are making with that.
Have you tried like playing with it?
I've messed around a little bit, but that's something I have to dedicate. I would have to sit down and very much so
working on it.
Yes, very much so dedicate to it. I think that that stuff will, especially with the stuff that you were saying, like Adobe's doing, where it's like using these more procedurally or generated areas, there will always be a need. What's nice is there will always be a need for human hands to touch it, to make it look a little bit better, like more melded into whatever environment you're working on, whatever game. So I don't feel like it'll ever become completely automated, but I think that it is interesting that a lot of things, it seems, will become quicker. And even now it seems that there's a lot of, I think that the industry is seeing that the demand for the quality of games as it continues going requires more hands just naturally. So outsourcing is becoming a more normal
thing.
Yeah, just like I think that people are going to be expected less to be able to do everything, and I think hyper specialization will truly be. I mean, it's already kind of happening, but like it'll be more of a focus.
So, did you feel like your kind of employment opportunities and the horizons have widened with after COVID? Do you feel like studios are hiring more? You know what I mean? From
No, that's a great. Yeah, I think you're totally right. As COVID has kind of happened,
like all of the studios. What I'm trying to say, though, all of the studios more or less are kind of more open to hybrid work from home. You don't have to go to the office, all those things. Like Square Enix, they said like 80% of people can stay at home and just work in Japan, but from their home.
Sure.
Like, and they want to hire everywhere. Ubisoft wants to hire everywhere. Like Epic Games, they're hiring everywhere. Like Netherlands, like Sweden, they don't really care, right? So although they are like in North Carolina, so do you feel like it's a factor that kind of helps you out, or you still feel like you want to be kind of part of the team? You want to go to the office. You want to be part of that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think what's nice is that, and what I love about this industry is that it is kind of for everybody. Like anybody, if you're like a shy person and you don't want to go into that's not your thing. Like now, the opportunity is there for you to work at home, and you can talk to people through Slack or whatever, and you can see them. You can come in once in a while and be a presence, and then you can leave, and like it's totally cool. Yeah. And I think that's great. Like I personally like coming into the office. I love, being able to talk to people, look over someone's shoulder, get the instant feedback.
And also getting out, also.
Yeah. But that's cool. I don't think that, like as you were saying, like people are now reaching out, being like, oh, we have more people working from remote. I don't think that's necessarily an issue anymore. I don't think it's a problem. I think that there will always be a need for like a core team or a core amount of people in a set focused area, just for like what I just talked about, where it's like we need this, fix like really quick, and just like to be able to have someone roll over and be like, this needs to get done right now.
Yeah. So kind of like the question, we talked about how do people get into the industry. So we also have a question, especially with 2020 and 2021, there was this trend, like the big resignation. A lot of people left studios, and I know personally a lot of people left like the Bungie, a lot of people left Blizzard, kind of went to startups and so on. The question is, why do people leave? Like when you worked for most, I guess, people in this industry, especially if they're like not in the US, I talk with people from like Belgium, a lot of people in Europe, they really want to work at Blizzard. For them, it's like Disney.
Yeah.
They're like, no, I've played I've played Diablo or like World of Warcraft. I still play it, I have this huge rig. I love this game. I have like all the figurines. The only company I want to work is Blizzard. But then once they start working there, in a couple of years, they leave and they do something else. So my question is, what kind of pushes developers out? And then what can managers and companies do about it to kind of stop this?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my story as well. Like I've worked kind of everywhere. I did my time there and I leave. And ultimately what it is it's just looking, I mean, for me personally, it was always like the next challenge. Like every project I'm on, every studio I'm at, it's like, hey, it's what can I learn and kind of grow from here. I mean, that was for me personally. But I think as I talk to other people and to kind of think through your example, I think the answer is it doesn't feel right. Like it's making games is a dream job, and it ultimately isn't feeling like that there. And you say like, hey, that was their dream job.
Yeah, at the time.
At the time, and then they get there and it doesn't really kind of pan out. And for me, it gets to, you can imagine what working at like your dream studios are like, working on a Halo game or a Naughty Dog game.
Totally.
But when you get there, it's twofold. It's like you don't really know exactly what you're working on. Like you can imagine what it'd be like, but that thing that you think is really exciting and the thing you dreamt on working on, maybe you get to that studio and you don't end up working on that. You have to work on
something else.
The funny story I like to tell is, I talked about how I sold all my Dreamcast collection to get the original Xbox, and that was to get Halo. and playing that Halo game and driving the Warthog around and being able to have like the silent cartographer island level. And it's like, okay, I want to create that.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, everywhere I went, I've been trying to make a simple open exploration vehicle driving space. And it's every game I've worked on. Killzone 2, I had an opportunity to do that there. Halo 4, it's like, hey, this is going to happen there. And yeah, I've always been looking, and I think that's a great example of like working on your dream studios and your dream franchises and wanting to do that content. And I never had that full opportunity to make that fully exploration driving level until Uncharted and Lost Legacy.
Yeah.
Which has that really
Which is
great,
a wonderful game, actually.
Really, thank you. That really short open world driving section, and I finally got to do it there, and it just, that was the most fun I've had.
Like
making any other game.
That's the funny game, because my wife, she's really not into games, and whenever I'm playing, she's completely indifferent. She's like, But when I played like that last Uncharted game, I put it like on pause or something, and I went out, and then she kind of came back and she said, "Wow, that's one beautiful game," because it's really like captivating. It's really nice.
Yeah. And you're gonna talk to Martin, and Martin and I have this just amazing work experience on it where we made the big giant twin Ganesh elephants in the waterfall. And the story of that,
so beautiful. Yeah.
The story of that was I came back from break after Uncharted 4, and I just spent 2 weeks in Maya just block meshing it out. And it was just like, hey, this is great. You're going to climb on these statues and do all this traversal. Like, this is great. Like, yeah, this will be the first thing we make. And they assigned it to Martin. And Naughty Dog says, Martin and I got to meet each other and work with each other. And we spent 8 months just building that out and taking my gameplay and taking kind of the art assets and making it really work together. And it was just this, just achievement of a process of like 8 months to get the gameplay in, but to get the visuals. And it ends up being like, the star of the show, like a real kind of centerpiece. And I mean, really, that was, we were given the opportunity to create that, and just our working relationship was just so positive and, again, fun. And it really felt like, hey, this is the dream that when it came time to start the studio, I just immediately called him and said, hey,
Martin is great. I mean,
I had so much fun working with you. I think it would be great if you'd come in and be our lead environment artist. And of course, he jumped at the chance to work with me.
So, kind of like the almost last question. So, do you feel like building games in a way ruins games for you? Like that you can't enjoy games anymore as you used to?
Because I've thought about that. The funny thing is they tell you don't work on a franchise you love because you'll end up hating it. I think it's more that game you make, it's tough if you can, because it's making games so hard. If you can, at the end of it, you really enjoy it. The good news is I think for every franchise I've worked on, I've always had that moment of working on it at the studio and then finally getting it home, it's shipped, it's out the door, you're not working on it.
Do you have like a copy at home? Or
the copy, copy at home, and then you put it in and you're on your own setup, on your couch, on your TV, you're at home and you're playing it, and there's that whole disconnect of like, it's done, it's over, and now I get to enjoy it. So that really helps. I haven't answered your question, which is, has making games hurt how I play games? And having worked at Naughty Dog and developed at the studio we called it the Naughty Dog Design Sense, but having developed that attention to detail, like the way a Naughty Dog game is about crafting the story and having every moment to moment be really contextualized by what the enemies are doing and what the player is doing, and then just having that, again, attention to detail on every aspect of the game, from the environment art to the sound to the animation, like that has really changed the way I play games. Like I have a real high bar to quality now because of that. But no, I get everyone can't kind of make a game like that. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the funniest answer to it is like that really changed it. Like I really have such a high bar for what quality is. But no, at the end of the day, like I still go home, I still play love playing games more than anything. And I can honestly say, like, after all these years, after 17 plus years, and how many studios and how many games, it still is making games is still a dream job, and this is still a dream job.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your
of course.
time. I think it was a wonderful interview, and I think we're kind of done.
Yeah. No, that was. I would like to kind of keep chatting on.
Thanks for enjoying another episode of the 80 Level Roundtable podcast. Check out upcoming episodes on the 80 Level website at 80.lv. Join our career site at 80.lv/RFP. And share our podcast with friends and on your social networks.